For the longest time, people will ask, what's the purpose of my life? My being the operative word. My life. And that's a certain type of question, but it's a very small one. Eventually, the more expanded soul drops the word my and says, what's the purpose of life? And how do I fit into this grander purpose? Hi, everybody. Welcome to my second archetypal video, which is a lot of fun for me to do. I hope you're going to enjoy these. In my first one, I introduced the idea of what I'll be doing and the template for it. I'll be taking on individual archetypes in each of the future weeks. Excuse me. And I'll take an archetype, I'll explore it with you, then I'll discuss how it manifests it can manifest in an individual's life, and then in the collective. And I think this is a way of helping you spot archetypal patterns. But that leads to the question of, why would you want to do that? I mean, what's in this for you? So I thought in this session, I'm going to describe the journey of life via an archetypal view that applies to all of us. I have long taught that power is the fundamental ingredient in the human experience. And I came to this conclusion after years of doing readings when I was medical intuitive readings, because what I was observing in people was how they lost power, how the choices people would make that would cause them to energetically hemorrhage, and what people will go through to try and, quote, get their power back. And that power had become the main thread around within people's lives, becoming empowered, books on personal power, and then self-esteem, and all of our emphasis on the nature of our inner power, and how relationships became defined all around our field of power, whether or not we can protect our power boundaries, whether or not someone disempowers us by something they say. You can't use that tone of voice, you can't say this, that. And I'm observing through the decades of how easily a person is disempowered by something someone says, or is disempowered by an event that happened in their life. And for all the good things that continue to happen, the hemorrhage continues because there is something of their power that remains locked in a trauma or locked in an event. And it makes it all the more difficult for them to function fully present in their everyday life. And maybe some of you relate to this. So what I want to discuss here, share with you, is how through my work, it seemed to me that all of us share this journey of, it's not just empowerment, because that's not a big enough word. It's actually a journey of forming a relationship with power itself, of understanding that is our fundamental ingredient. And that everything in life, everything we think, every word in our head, every choice we make, every attitude, everything we wear, everything is in fact a power negotiation. I watch people walk in when they're going to sit down at a workshop, and they immediately run to the front and put their books down, because that's more power than sitting in the back. And I watch how people walk in a room, and they're scanning the room to see where they will feel safe, where their power will not feel threatened. This is archetypal. This is what we do. And included in this is what we do, is the fact that we are prone by nature to do archetypal readings on each other. We do it all the time. You'll sit. What is that? People watch, I think is the phrase that you do. People watching. But what are you watching for? As soon as you watch somebody, you instantly decide that person looks like a geek. That person looks like a teacher. That person looks like a successful businessman, maybe an entrepreneur. You're doing archetypal readings. And the reason you do this, and you could call it labeling because that's another word for it, but it's the more, I guess, socially acceptable word, but it's really you're sensing another person's system of power, whether or not you're comfortable around them, whether or not you feel threatened by them. This is the way we're designed. This is part of our survival instincts that emerge first as we learn to utilize our power tools and express our power in the world. It's a universal journey. Every single person's on it. It's not a religious journey. It's not a spiritual journey. It is an organic progression through how each of us relates to this life that is, in fact, a system of power. And whether we feel disempowered by it, what we do to become empowered, the stages we go through, and those stages are universal, which means the stages themselves are an archetypal pattern. So that's what I want to describe to you today as a way of illustrating why it is so valuable to reach a stage in your life where you can become very impersonal. Not impersonal doesn't mean uncaring by any means. Impersonal means detached. That you can here's a way to understand that. For the longest time, people will ask, "What's the purpose of my life?" My being the operative word. My life. And that's a certain type of question, but it's a very small one. Eventually, the more expanded soul drops the word my and says, what's the purpose of life? And how do I fit into this grander purpose? Because I'm going to be here for a short time, and life has gone on before me and will go on after me. The systems and cycles of life continue. What is all of that about? And how do I fit into that? That's when you start pursuing knowledge that is not for your sake, but just to understand the greater whole. That's a very different kind of power you're pursuing. You're pursuing cosmic power, impersonal power. You don't want to convert it into something that can make you more money, or you just simply want to understand the system as a way of making choices that support the life structure. So let me describe. When I was a medical intuitive in my early days, I was introduced to the chakra system. I didn't even know about that. And can you imagine? I didn't even know about that. And I was doing readings, and I thought, why do I feel like every level in a human being is a fundamentally different database? It wasn't until I wrote a book called Creation of Health a long time ago in the 80s that I was able to sit down and actually articulate what I had accumulated. But with that as my base, I at first thought the chakra system was something that belonged to human beings. But that is not true at all. In fact, the chakra system is an organic, impersonal structure through which power moves in and out of, from the energetic form to the physical form to the energetic form to the physical form. It's a Mobius. And, and each stage is indeed a different vibrational field. Like every single level has a different magnetic system to it. So I'm going to describe that as a way of using it as a background to describe how we make our sojourn and our progression through power. And my point is that as we move from the literal world, where we take everything literally, and seek to understand the world in terms of ownership and domineering, we are meant to evolve to a higher place, where we get that the most significant thing we can do with our power is to empower the world around us, not take from it, but give to it. That the world around us, that we are so powerful that every choice we make, it's mystical mathematics, affects the whole. And when we're in the early stages of relating to power, we don't get that, because the only thing a person's focused on is what's in it for me, until you get to I'm in it for you. And it's the difference between the love of power and transitioning to the power of love. But this is the universal journey. So I'm going to put it in terms of your chakra, so you get that it's a bio-spiritual, ecological system. We are one with the whole. And so what we do here is done there. Again, it's mystical mathematics. You just have to trust that it works. It's like taking an aspirin. You don't know how it works. You just trust when you have a headache, pop 2 of them, and you feel better in 20 minutes. So back to this. Power is the fundamental ingredient in the human experience. And we are a structure of power. And so I'm going to go through the chakras, but I'm going to line them up like a column 1, 2, 3, and then next to it 4, 5, 6, 7, and then next to it 8, 9, 10. So it's 3 columns side by side. And in our journey with power, our first encounter with it is 5 sensory. It's your chakras 1, 2, and 3. These are below your waist. And this world, and if I was doing a reading, if this was medical intuition, if I was doing a reading on you, I would explain things in much the same way, that the world below your waist, in terms of consciousness, is your relationship to the physical world, power outside coming toward you. So that the first level of our relationship to what is power, what is it? And is that we want to touch it, we want to taste it, we want to hear it, we want to grab it, we want to hold on to it. Now look at the chakra designs. Your first chakra is your tribal, your family, your tribal, but it's bigger than that. It's your DNA. It's the whole of you in the physical world. And so our survival instincts early on activate and tell us somehow that physical power is our greatest safety net. Physical power, that's our first sense of it. Whether we can take care of ourselves on a playground, whether or not we can, we know how to use which end of a knife to hold. Physical power, stuff. And so the body is designed, it follows that same sort of organic, what's the ground beneath my feet? Do I own it? Do I rent it? Am I safe here? And our instincts in the first column are fundamentally survival. They're not evolved. They're not like high guidance coming in. They're not any of that inner, deep, profound guidance. They're pure survival guidance. Look at your second chakra. It's where your weapons are, your lower back, your sexual organs. This is your fight or flight area. This is the kind of power that we gravitate toward, that we think will keep us safe. So in the world of stuffology, this is where money is. This is where we put our wallets in the second chakra. This is where we put our guns. Because in this column is a primal fear that human beings have of being raped, of being controlled by the outside world. And so how we fortify ourselves in the first stage of our relationship to power is to generally amass power, or think that if I live here, I'm safer, or if I have this, I'm safer, or if I wear clothes with labels, I'm safer, or it's title, it's power, it's position, it's stuff. And it's a relationship to stuff that says stuff is power. And in that level of consciousness, it is. The third chakra is your sense of self. This is where your personal sense of who you are comes in. You're very vulnerable here. If someone said, I just can't stand the sweater you're wearing, you look awful in it, you'll hear me, but you will feel it in your gut because it will hit you like a sucker punch because it's a criticism. So your sense of self is in your third chakra area. But this particular level of your sense of self is your ego, very drawn to your physical form and to what you look like, whether you like what you look like, whether or not you think you're too short or too tall or too fat or too thin or blah 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 blah. All of that is very much caught in this part of your body, which is why if I was doing a reading and I see all the disorders that come from self-neuroses, there's so often with eating disorders because it's this self-esteem that's been just assaulted. But if you'll notice in these last decades, the need for self-esteem, the emphasis on its importance, the critical value of developing an inner self and empowering your inner self has become an emphasis because we're getting that actually what we're talking about is discovering that we must manage our power, that this thing we call ourself is actually more complex than the ego. It is the full creative magnetism of our soul, of our being. It is our battery, and that we really must manage our power with great clarity and great strength. And so self-esteem is like the first step toward getting what it means to not abdicate power for security, but to learn what it is to become the next stage, the middle column, an empowered person, because you can accumulate all the stuff in the world. And if you don't have self-esteem, it won't do you any good in terms of helping you feel integrous or self-love. It won't help you at all. And this is why Buddha always said, stuff is just illusion. It's just illusion. Go have all your stuff. But if you don't progress in power, if you don't move your way deeper into the journey of who you are, it doesn't matter how much stuff you have. It'll never help you feel good. It will never help you think more clearly. It will never help you develop a sense of empowerment. There's power and then there's empowerment. It will not help you. It's a natural progression to move to the second column, your fourth, your fifth, your sixth chakra, your seventh, to then discover, well, who am I? And what's love? And what do I feel about things? And so the second level of power that we progress through, and we all do, is the stage of self-discovery, where we examine what is it that I want? What is it, what makes me feel alive? Who am I? These questions, these deeper questions, are not stuff questions, they're inner stuff questions. They're questions about the fuller you. And that's that second stage of power. And of course, this journey deserves its own year-long treatment, really. I'm trying to squeeze something here in very rapidly. But everyone I think, listening to this, has already cracked into their inner self. So they're in this part of the journey. You are in this part of the journey. This part of discovering how rich you are in the world behind your eye. You may just when you get out of the thickness of the first column. And the first column, here's a key phrase: what will they think? What will they think? It's the they column. It's the feeling controlled by all of this and participating in controlling others. Because that's also what happens when you're part of that collective group power. But as you strive to develop your own power, you discover that you have deeper feelings, different feelings than the way you were in the group. You discover that you may you think differently than the way all of them felt. It's a journey of a different kind of power. And this is that second stage of power. And this journey can go on a lifetime. And another name for this journey is, in the first column, everything is about the love of power in the world. The love of power. Power, power, power. Physical power. More stuff, more things, more money, more fame, more cars, more this, more blah, 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 blah. It's all that. You ask these young kids today, what do you want to do? I want to be famous. It's that power. I want someone to recognize my face when I walk down the street. For what? Well, because then I'm recognized. And then what? And then they can't go any further than that. It's that kind of superficial power. When you get into the next stage of the journey, which we all do, it's about what is my power? Who am I? The capacity to give your word and keep it. The capacity to manage your inner self, to have the development of yourself progress in such a way that you no longer are regulated by whether you feel the fear of that amorphous they humiliating you, but rather that you listen to yourself over others. This is a masterful and major transformation. When you're in the first column consciousness, you take everything literally. It's all about you. It's my world, my stuff, my, it's the my and the stuff and the literal world. And when I'm talking to people who I see are thickly involved in that, and I ask them to imagine something cosmic, like an archetypal pattern, that in fact you tell someone who's thick in the literal world that their behavior is influenced by psychic patterns of power, like the warrior, like the bully, like this. They live in the world where every problem is either your fault or their fault, but it's eye level. Getting to a place where you can stand back, step out of the literal world, and get to the third column, which is the symbolic, cosmic, impersonal world. And get to a place you think, do I have the bully? What does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? Do I have a pattern in me that is activated by power in the outside world that combines with power in my inside world and behaves in a certain way that everybody recognizes? The same trigger points for all bullies seem to trigger me. A way of understanding yourself that is impersonal and cosmic, as well as intimate and personal. This is the journey of power as laid out on 3. When we get to the middle column, we develop this curiosity about our energy. You start opening up to the language of energy. You start opening up maybe to energy medicine, to energy healing, to thinking in terms of that person's energy seems to drain me. You start thinking in the world that you cannot see. and the power of the world you cannot see, and how powerful a word is, how powerful an attitude is. In the physical world, it's how powerful a wallet is, how powerful a fist is, how powerful a gun is. If you can hear a weapon, you are an amateur. But as you evolve in yourself, you develop skills called cleverness, strategy, the internal substance of what makes a human being a human being. Eventually, the third column, the 8th, 9th, 10th chakras, these are not personal. They are cosmic. They are impersonal. They are impersonal. Oh, nobody owns an archetype, but an archetype influences everybody. And each of us experiences an archetype in our own way, which makes it intimate. So it's totally impersonal. It has nothing to do with us. The mother archetype was not created for any woman today who's a mother. But every woman who is a mother has an intimate relationship of something that has been a part of the natural system forever. That's the difference between being impersonal, as it was not created for us, for you personally, but it was created for all of us. And when you get to this stage of the impersonal, you are able to jump into an exploration of yourself from the most extraordinary vantage point. You're able to say, you know what, I have a bully archetype, or I have a healer. I've got to do something about that. Or I have a rescuer. And excuse me, it's so dry in my office. Forgive me, it's the heat's on, things are dry. I'm so sorry. But you get to a place where the impersonal becomes a navigating tool of such great, again, power. So what kind of power? The capacity to see something clearly in a way that does not disempower you, but it helps you understand the power theater in which you are living. And it becomes a guide through which you decide what's a wise choice versus a reactionary choice. In the first column, when you're just stuck in the physical world, you react all the time. You react. And instead of in the cosmic world where you take charge. The image I'm going to leave you with is to think of yourself on a train, and the train's your life. And that so long as you are in the first column, you are being dragged around by the engine that you should be directing, but you're in the caboose, and you're looking at the tail end of your life. You're just looking at everything that all your decisions, all your reactions, all your unconscious cravings have created for you, but you've had no conscious participation in it. And so you have no idea where you're going. You're always like the last car on the train, thinking you have no idea where the train is going, not realizing that your fragments have been directing it all the time. And the journey is to turn around and start walking toward the engine, to take charge of the power of the power of choice that is the most remarkable, and realizing I've left my choice to my addictions, I've left my choice to their opinions, I'm controlled by this. I need to empower myself so that I can use this power that is my life in a clear and directed way. And as you walk up through the many cars of the train, you're going to go through your baggage car. You have to get rid of baggage. You're going to go through the passenger cars, third class, second class, and first class. And it's up to you to have people disembark when you realize, what are you still doing on my train? I can't have you on my train anymore. Or I want you to always stay on my train, and I'm going to get you a better seat. You also realize other people will kick you off their trains. I mean, this is a big world, and you're not the one in charge of it. But this is the journey for all of us until you get to the engine and you realize here in the third column that in the impersonal world of your power, the more you understand how great this power is and what you're supposed to do with it, how to direct it, You realize the more you direct this yourself to actions that empower the whole, the more the laws of the universe work effortlessly with you. When you're in the first column and it's all about you, it can oftentimes feel like it is only me doing things because the laws are working they're working, but they're working without the smoothness of the whole mystical cosmic system because you don't get the rules of the game. You think it's all about you. You think it's all about accumulating. You think it's all about having this, that, and the other, when in fact, if I could take you up to the top of the building, if I could take you to the third floor, I'd say what it's about is you figuring out, how do I use this power to benefit the whole? How do I use it? How do I use this power to heal me and through that others? That's the name of the game. The love of power to the power of love. And in this, we'll start diving into each archetype one at a time. And I'm hoping that as I explore those, you'll recognize yourself in the various archetypes and some of the archetypes that come along. And it'll help you see your own world more incredibly. Because the cosmic view is honestly the only view worth going after. Thank you, everybody. See you for the third one.